Hey everybody. So last year, actually roughly literally 11 to 12 months ago, I started a video series. It was essentially Egnards' Guide to Being a Guild Officer. And there's two aspects of the game that I really function in as a guild officer. The first is in recruitment, which has become significantly easier in the last 2 years as people um, as there starts to be name recognition and people know about my efficiency and want to be part of my guild, I don't have to convince them anymore, thankfully. And the other part of that is territory battles, right? So being able to max out the stars in territory battles and build goals for the game mode. But beyond that, I also tend to be like the chat GPT for my guild. And what that means is, as far back as 5 or 6 years ago, anytime our guild wanted to put out a message, the other officers would kind of discuss the key points in our officer chat, and then they would say, "All right, Egnards, do your magic, make it sound like it needs to sound." And shoot it out there. And so I've kind of become the de facto goal setter as well. And this video is really about how important it is to set specific, finite, and reasonable goals for your guild and the people in your guild. So we're going to talk about that right after the intro. Okay, before we get into game and Discord, I do a lot of roster reviews. I do them every Sunday, and sometimes I do one, sometimes I do five. I've done as many as 10 in a single day. And one thing that I have noticed, especially lately with the new raid already being out, is that a lot of guilds don't set actionable goals for the people in that guild. And I understand if you're in a hyper casual guild and it's just kind of like, all right, let's just do our thing and we're all here to have fun and we play once a day. That's completely fine. That is the expectation you've set, and that's okay. But if that is the case, you're probably not watching this video, and you're maybe not in tune with the type of content that I put out, which really involves efficiency. The people that I'm talking to are in, guilds that want to be competitive, or guilds like my own that want to be casually competitive, right? So we want to push ahead. We do play multiple times a day. We do want to max things out, but we also understand that everybody in the guild has a job, has a life, has family, has things to do, goes on vacations, and sometimes just can't be there to the same extent that they'd like to be there in. And what I've noticed while doing these reviews is that there's a lot of people in these guilds who just don't know what their guild expects of them, and that's problematic, right? It's super problematic. We like to think as guild officers like, oh, I'm the cool officer. I never ask my guild to get this TW Omicron. And that's kind of like the girl in college. She was like, oh, I'm the cool girl. I do all these things and I let my boyfriend step all over me because I'm awesome. And then that person finds out that that's not really the right way to be a person, and they've been getting stepped on for so many years and not functioning in their best light. The same thing is the case with guilds. Now, I'm not saying that as a guild leader you need to be, Joseph Stalin, and I'm not telling you that you need to dictate every decision that is made by every character or player in your guild. But what I am saying is that if you have a goal to get to the next box in the raid, or if you have a goal to hit 2 more stars in TB, or if you want to do better in TW, you have to have actionable things for your guild to do. And you have to be the person to put in the research and provide those answers for everybody. And I mean, you also need to set realistic timelines. So this weekend, I was doing a roster review, and it is part of the reason why that prompted me to do this video now that I've been thinking about for a while. Um, that person's guild, if I remember correctly, they were setting a goal of hitting like 6 million average across everybody in the guild in Order 66. And then I looked at this person's guild scores in Naboo, and they were doing like 1.8 average, right? So not very realistic. Um, I didn't know the timeline. I didn't know what the expectation was. I didn't know, like, are they expecting this in 2 months, 6 months, 8 months? Like, what's the deal going on? And this player didn't know either, and it makes it very hard for that person to manage their account in a specific way. So we're going to bounce on over out of the game, and we're actually going to go to my guild's Discord, whether or not my officers get mad at me, whatever. I made these messages, so they only make me look bad, right? If anyone looks bad. This is a message that I sent out in March, right, for the raid, and it effectively said, hey, because I don't need to read this whole thing. Hey, the new raid is about 3 months away. We're going to, make the decision to try on this old raid just to see what's up and see how we're doing. And here are some actionable things. Those are the bullet points that you can do to help yourself over the short term to build out the raid a little bit more, right? And we did that raid. We checked it out. We made a decision to put it to a guild vote because we are a democracy, not a cheerocracy. And we decided not to pursue the old raid, but made it very clear, like, hey, listen, we do have this intention with the new raid. We don't have information on it yet, but we fully expect to go much harder on it. You need to be prepared. And that was in March, and we are now in July, right? So we're already thinking about these things 4 months ahead of time. We decided, we voted as a guild. We said, hey, we're not going to try to hit the next box in the old raid. But here is our expectation for the new raid. And at this point, we did not know any information, and we were just basically guessing based on the current cadence with the raid we were doing. Right. So just keeping people updated throughout the course of the week of, hey, this is what needs to be done. This is how we have to do it. None of this stuff is super important. All right, here's another good one. This was in May. This is after my guild leader and I had a phone call. We were discussing our raid goals. And, the important thing when we set for the new raid was, okay, we're going to be net neutral, or we're going to get the same box we're currently getting within 3 to 4 raids, right? So within a month, and being in an end game guild with an average of 12.5 million GP, that's pretty reasonable for us to say, hey, we want to zero out our scores. We want to be +1 box from where we currently are within the first 3 to 4 months, and that's an average of 8.5 million, which is actually 7.5 million, but we didn't know that at this time. And then we set an expanded stretch goal of, hey, we want to max this raid, but we're going to see, what's up. Beyond that, at this point, again, I gave, everybody some actionable goals. And I said, if you are a free-to-play player, and we do have free-to-play players in the guild, this is probably the team you want to go for. If you spend a little bit of money, this is the team you want to go for. If you spend a lot of money, this is the team you want to go for, right? Should you be working on multiple teams? Yes, right? Because we want to hit that actionable 7.5 million, which at the time we thought was 8.5 million. This is all irrelevant stuff. Okay, once again, June comes around, we see and we get the expectation of what we're going to see with this raid, with the raid boxes. So we set a follow-up. Hey, everybody within a month needs to be hitting this score. We're at this level of the game. That's very reasonable. Some notes on how to do that. Some things worth putting at high relics to prepare. Things that are probably not super, super, super great. And again, this is all before the raid was tried or tested. And then a reminder, Okay, so this is about 2 months since my last reminder. That was in early May. This is in like mid-June, so a month and a half. Hey, our definite goal is to hit that average of 7.5 million. And you'll see throughout there's a theme that's basically the same thing as I reiterate the same message over and over again in different ways. How to complete the raid in very simple terms. We have raid strategy areas where we actually post that stuff, but that's not important for these specific messages. Um, and then my final message here that we just released yesterday, which is essentially like, hey, congratulations, guys. We did hit our first goal within 2 raids, not 3 to 4. Here are the things I'm not happy with. You know, here are the things that I am happy with. Right down here. Here are why our raid goals are important because they help us with the other game modes, right? What our stretch goals are, right? So our next goal for the 6 months, or our 6 month reasonable stretch goal is to max the rate at 10.4. Reminder, our 3 month goal is 7.5, right? Now, kind of patting myself on the back here when I talk about these things, but what I'm essentially saying to the guild is these are the expectations. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm not telling you exactly what to farm. Your account is your account. But our guild is 50 people with a very specific goal. And if you fall and choose not to follow those goals, or attempt to get to those goals, or at least try to put some prominence towards those goals, then that's where we start to seek removals. I don't think anyone who is removed from Awakened Mandalorians is ever really surprised that they're removed, because we set these actionable goals. I don't want anyone to think that this is about guild removals. I do want you to understand that this is very much about understanding, as a guild member, what you should be doing so that you're helping yourself out and helping everybody else out. Actually, to jump back over to this, we will go over to some of my territory battles, TB announcements. I know some of you guys have seen these things before because I posted them in my territory battles one, but you can see my other TB officer Q has been posting the day plans, what the expectations are. We've recently shifted our day one plan over to being like, hey, if you're new to the guild, here are some things to keep in mind because day one is super easy, right? We see our days set goals for each day going backwards. But then the other thing that I want to show you is that every single TB, or most TBs, I also put out a TB Redux. It tells us where we are. It tells us how close we are to the next goal. It tells us the things that are important for us to reach that next goal, right? And it also reminds us that, yes, we've had some attrition lately and retention issues. No, retention issues isn't the correct word because these are removals. But like, hey, we're doing a really great job with what we've had, and things have been hard, but we have pushed ahead. So again, if you are a guild officer, it's really important to set the standard of communication. It's really important that you're effectively your guild's librarian. You are the person that does the research. You can't assume that everybody in your guild understands the strategies, that everybody in your guild just collectively, like, Geonosian Brood Alpha and the whole Hive Tactics thing. You can't assume that everybody's on the same page, and you do have to reiterate your goals constantly. The one last thing that I do want to add here is, again, I've said this in earnest before, and I said this in passing before. Make sure that your goals are actionable, right? So things that your guild can actually do, see, and feel. But also make sure that they're reasonable. So if you are in a guild currently doing 1.8 million average on a raid, don't just jump down your guildmates' throats and say, hey, we are going to get to 8 million. because that's not reasonable. You're asking them to jump their scores by a 4x multiple that is ridiculous to expect, right? You're not going to get from the fifth box to the max box in one raid cycle, but you can jump one or two boxes and set the standard for building to the next one. What I'd like to finish off with here is if you have any questions about being an officer, being a good officer, if you have any, comments or things that you'd like to see actioned or talked about from someone who has done this for about, I think at this point it's been 5 years, shoot me in the comments in Discord. Let me know, and maybe either it's worth doing a full video, or maybe it's worth doing a grab bag of answering questions about being a great officer. With all of that said, peace out, and have a great rest of your day.